Recording. There we go. And we are good to go.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us, especially after a kind of a pseudo long weekend. So our approach today, and I think Gordon will agree with me. Oh, by the way, before I begin, I'm Linda Howell, and I'm the director of the Writing Program and Center. And the Syllabus Lab is part of a series that I've been working with OFE on. And so many of you probably have saw announcements, have seen announcements. The first two we did was kind of like a syllabus lab, very purely, thinking about the faculty-centered syllabus and the student-centered syllabus. And then we did a session halfway through really about academic integrity and kind of things, issues like plagiarism. And now this part of the series is leaving space for reflection, for thinking about, okay, it's really great that we start today. We're doing it today because today is the beginning of registration, right? So even as we're all kind of still in the midst of this semester, many of us are looking forward to spring, to what that is going to entail, and so what we wanted to do here was to actually provide a space for us to have that conversation and to think about things that have gone right, things that haven't gone, the way that we wanted to. What are some things we want to do in our next iteration of these courses in general? We've been putting together a work checklist that we wanted to make available to all faculty. And I want to underscore here that this is a living document. So throughout this conversation, if there are things that you think we could collapse into one thing, or if there are issues that you think we should add to the checklist, because we want it to be useful, especially because, a lot of people, it helps just to have an inventory, right? It's like, okay, did I do this, just things to think about, that instead of the first week of class where you're like, oh crap, I forgot to contact the library to do that library visit. And all of a sudden, so thinking about those issues oh, hey, Deidre. Yes.
No, I was going to say, while I was giving an exam this morning, I scanned through that attachment, and I think it's great. I looked at it and I was like, yeah, I can see where absolutely it'll benefit new faculty for sure. And then even just me, just double checking myself, I thought it was great.
Awesome. Great. Well, again, and as we're having this conversation, thinking about things that we can add or refine is really important to us, because I think that our ethos, at least, the way that I have experienced it here, is that this is a partnership with faculty to really make the faculty experience much better, and to also to use that to help our newer faculty as they come in and become part of the various cultures, research, teaching, and all that. So, so the way we wanted to really, I guess, break out the conversation was to talk in these three sections. Start with course planning, then kind of talk about the syllabus looking forward, and then thinking about the technology canvas here. But, I actually overnight, this morning and last night, I've been thinking about things we can refine in that area, thinking about technology in general, rather than just canvas, thinking about technology. So I would like to start with I'll give you my anecdote, and then I'd invite everybody else to maybe share theirs. So as I was going through this list, one of the things that I struggle with, and I struggle with it every semester, is that I have the course in my head that I want to teach, and then I have the practicality of what the course is and my time, right? So one of the things that I did this semester was I had a group project that students were working on in stages. And what's happened is the schedule has kind of gone off the rails, because I was expecting students to do things that they clearly weren't prepared to do. So I didn't want to punish them, kind of like, okay, so what's happened is that kind of arrangement has changed, and it's changed the way I'm giving feedback. And I've had to create time in that. And I didn't build in time for that, right? And I wasn't really, I should have anticipated it. So what I'm going to do for my next iteration, because I'm going to do a collaborative writing class again next semester, is I'm taking 2 weeks out of my schedule that I'm kind of calling free weeks. So I'm going to implant those into the course, kind of like our instructional days, the weather days.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about them in terms of Linda days. Does Linda have to catch up? Oh, how am I going to do that? So that's kind of my anecdote and reflection. It's like, I know, so this semester I'm doing a grad class, which was collaborative writing. Next semester, I'm doing a grant writing class, and we're actually going to collaborate with the Jacksonville Historical Society for the students to work with them on grant materials. And so I know I have to be much more attentive to that time management because we have a partner. So I don't want to end up kind of going off the rails.
And then I think a lot of faculty, when they start thinking about re-envisioning their class for the next year, they start adding things like that, and they forget that doing that can involve a need for extra time. You know, particularly if you're working with community partners, your students are going to need that time. You're going to need time to prepare for it, and so it's hard to, you know what your course ran like last time, you know what your normal schedule is like, and we tend to try and tweak here or tweak there with something new and innovative, which is great, which we should be doing, but then we forget to build in that Linda or Gordon time so that you can have that, something like towards the middle of the semester maybe, where you can catch up. If you're running behind, then you can catch up, but if you're doing well on your time, then that means you can kind of pre-plan and pre-prep for the end of the semester, so you're not running full out at the end.
And I think part of it's also that, again, I think this is also COVID related, because I think some of the, as we kind of try to move back to whatever this new normal looks like, the expectations I have to change, right? Because there are kind of, there's just a different sense of time among my students that I found. I mean, I don't know if anybody else has found this, but I mean, I encounter students' sense of time in a very different way now, and I'm trying to accommodate for it. So I'm still trying to teach a pre-COVID class to a population of students who have experienced COVID, not only as an epidemic, but as a kind of a new sense of time, right? Yeah, and so trying to figure out how to balance that is one of my struggles, right? Because I want to honor that, but I also don't want to. I mean, some things we can't fall behind on. There are certain things we have to do, right? So it's like, how do I balance that? So I'm kind of keeping that at the front of my mind as I go forward, and I won't be at all surprised if it's commented on in the ISQs, right? I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, I expect there's to be some commentary on that, and so I'm trying to anticipate, like
right,
not anticipate how to address it, but kind of thinking of it now as okay, what can I do here?
And I think some of the things that get me off track or off timing is, whether it be my personal timing in terms of prepping and grading for my course, or just on the schedule of course topics, are some of these things that we have early on in the course planning checklist, like academic activity tracking, planning for interventions with students early in the semester, because it's going to happen. You're going to have that student who ghosts you, week 3 or 4, and if you're struggling to catch up, then that student is falling off your radar. Midterm satisfactory, unsatisfactory assessments, those creep up on us so fast. This semester, it was like amazing how fast they came up. So, that's one of the things I'm going to be trying to be much more explicit with myself about, is planning actual days and times and activities to take care of those things before they hit, right?
Well, and I think that's one of the checklist items, and this actually connects to a conversation that we've been having with Susan Perez, especially about academic support for students and advising. Especially in the first few years, it's like a lot of those students will end up, like you said, ghosting, and advisors can only do so much. So one of the things that thinking about, like, are there different interventions for different student populations, right? Because I think one of the things that we often forget is that while we might have a student who ghosts because they're just not doing well, they might not be doing well because there are all these other things, like these student, this job, school, work conflict, or they're caretakers, or
the transition to college.
They're just not. I mean, they have a bad schedule, right? And so how to think about. I really like to think about those things. And then I'm being director of the writing program, right? Having my faculty thinking about that, because those are going to be, especially when you're teaching writing classes, oftentimes I mean, and I say this a lot, but writing in the first year tends to be the class that a lot of students kind of ghost on because they have to study for their math exam, or their science lab is really taking up. And so they make these choices, right? I mean, and I don't judge that. I mean, we all kind of prioritize, but thinking about, well, a student who's not writing well and who has issues, that's a different intervention than a student who has a time management issue, right? That's a different, I mean, those are different conversations, and the advisors can only do so much, right? They can only follow up with them, but they're not going to fix the problem.
And yeah, I think that's something that Susan has impressed upon both of us. And I think we faculty need to recognize that while the advisors are our partners and they're great partners, I want the advisors to be telling my students who are struggling, hey, you need to go see Dr. Rakita, right? Because I know that the advisors can't tell them how they did poorly on a given assignment, right? They can only say, hey, your faculty is telling us that you're struggling, right? They need to come see me to get that academic help. Stephanie, you had a question or a point?
Well, it's interesting because this is something that, as a non-faculty member who works with students, that I struggle with when students come in for a research consultation and they talk about where something's going wrong, or and so often I work really hard at, you have to tell your faculty member. Telling me does, like, it helps you feel better about it because you told somebody, but it doesn't solve the problem. And so I think if people who are in roles like we have here at the library, if we can encourage students, like, your faculty member wants to know. Like, I have a student right now who works for us who's going to have surgery this week, and she did the preemptive strike. She sent a message yesterday to all her faculty saying, I'm having surgery this week. I think everything's going to be good, but just in case, here it is. And I was really proud of her because, like, that's what your faculty need. You don't need to go back next week when something went horribly wrong and now they don't believe you because it's Thanksgiving week and you,
right.
So getting ahead of things and encouraging students to talk to people. And I see it a lot with freshmen who are afraid to talk to people. Yes. I've made friends with a little, I call her my little surfer girl. And she comes and she chats with me. She's used to me for research consults, but she'll tell me stuff and I'm like, you need to go talk to the professor. I can't fix it, but they will fix it. And I feel like if we can get them early with that, asking for help, going to the writing center, going to whoever the right person is. But so often you're right, it's the faculty member.
Yeah.
The advisor can't fix it, but the faculty member can.
Yeah. And also it goes, I mean, and I like that point. And also it goes back to when I think about, even with, not only first year students, but a lot of our students have such anxiety, right, when it comes to certain things, and especially when it comes as they're getting upwards into their major, then that anxiety looks different because of grades, and it's closer to kind of that workspace, and thinking about jobs, and just the more we can kind of let them know that we're partners with them, and I think that we build that in the course planning, right? I mean, we build that by thinking about those things ahead of time, because then it's easier to, I don't want to say it's easier to deal with, but you kind of anticipate it. And I think that's what course planning to a certain degree is kind of trying to anticipate all those.
Yeah. And I think that they do have anxiety, I think, about coming to see us. I think a lot of us lament, particularly pre-COVID, I have office hours and nobody comes to see me. And, I realized that, gee, some of my syllabus language is not conducive to, it's not welcoming, right? It's very off-putting in the sense of, don't come bother me. I mean, it doesn't say that. It says, hey, come see me during my office hours. But the rest of my syllabus is pretty much, don't bother me, right? You gotta solve this problem on your own. And so I need to attend to that language change this coming term. But I think they do get clues from us, and they do get very nervous about, you have to remember yourself as an undergraduate, going to see someone who is, a faculty member in a department, that, particularly at the upper division, where they care about, if this is someone they might want to get a letter of recommendation from, it makes them very nervous. And so I think they suffer in silence. They don't come and see us. And so getting them in the door is really important. Deirdre.
So all of that, and we, like over in nursing and probably some of the other practice disciplines in PCH, we find so many of our students are just like working more than ever. Like, so, right, you don't want to tell them, like we try to tell them ahead of time how like your job should be being a student, but then you don't know their situation. So I can't tell you not to work. But a lot of us try to like get our schedule, at least the schedule out, like 4 weeks, like the students we're going to have next semester, right at the end of finals week, because we don't want to give it to them during finals week. And then they start looking at next semester and get, so right on that last day, we try to push our schedules out at least so they can start seeing what's in store, start writing stuff down. Deadlines. If there's a reading list, they might, read a chapter a week, something to try to look, this is what's in store. You can start prepping a little bit. And work schedules, hospitals, they want your schedule 6 weeks in advance for the next, so trying to let them see what you're going to have, a little bit of what you're going to have before the semester comes. And I wear, like trying to get people to come see you, I tell you, like I wear, like I'm like this, like you guys see me on the webinars and I'm kind of like this, but then I also put on this hat. I got to put this hat on. And I tell the students, I like being like this, but if you make me, if I have to be like this, I'm going to be like this, right? So come to me before I have to sit across the desk like this from you. You know what I mean? Like, what can we do preemptively? And I don't know how to, I mean, more students are starting to come and see that it's okay, but I don't know how even to get the student to make time to talk about what's like, even to make time to come see somebody. It's a strange thing to try to navigate that.
I know that I have in the past, and I have colleagues who make an office hour visit an assignment or a requirement, and there's a small point value to it, and it doesn't have to be a heavy conversation or anything like that, or even a long one, but even just the idea of getting them in the door, or getting them in the Zoom, whichever you're using for your office hours, and for me, it's often like, okay, you've got different options in terms of your grades in this class. Which option are you thinking about taking and why, right? So that they can make that decision informed and with some of my advice. And then if they're doing the project option, what need to start planning about for that now. And here are some ideas. I think that's been productive for me, but you're right. A lot of our students have work and most of our students, the majority of our students are working, and it's probably more of a workload and school load than we would think is appropriate pedagogically, but it's a reality. I think the other thing that's interesting is we now have to start thinking about planning for spring term at Thanksgiving, right? And for a variety of reasons, like you described, that's a bit of a change from, say, 15 years ago, when I think a lot of us,
use Christmas break.
That's part of the flexibility of an academic life is the idea of you could be prepping it the Sunday before the Monday term starts, right? I'm working on that syllabus the last minute, and some of that we need to recognize that our students have changed, higher ed has changed, but some of it is also that can still be there, right?
There are components you can still do.
You could still be changing things at the last minute, but thinking about what aspects the students really need to know, or you need to know weeks before the semester starts. One of the things that's on the checklist that I'll throw a shout out to is thinking about a way to collect students' preferred names and pronouns. And I like to do that before the semester starts. I know we can't require students to do anything, but if I can get them to answer a survey about that, then I roll into my class having a better sense of how they like to be referred to. And that, I think, establish a better rapport.
Well, it's interesting because I did that. I did that as part of a survey I sent to my grad students before the semester. I sent them a survey like 2 weeks ahead of the class, and asked them certain things, and also used it as an opportunity to get them thinking about what they would be doing. Right. So, ask them things like, how familiar are you with, these terms, right? Kind of on a Likert scale thing. And not only because I didn't want them to think, oh, I just don't know these terms, but I kind of wanted to give them a preview of the types of conversations that we were going to have. And that being a sense of, but they're participating in it, and I can get some information, like, I can get preferred pronouns, I can get, any issues, like I asked, like, if they had any, things that were going to come up that might, that they might have to miss class for, things like that, just to kind of get them thinking about it as well. And also I used it as an opportunity to give them to give them a heads up that it was going to be collaborative writing. So I was asking them questions like, I actually asked them to, so I gave them roles in the survey, like, team researcher, team writer, team editor, and asked them, like, which one of these are they most comfortable with? So that I had a sense of, like, trying to figure out the groups ahead of time. But trying to make it so that they got a preview of what it was coming, but also I got some kind of crucial information that would make that first night of class a little bit, we had a frame for the conversation. So
yeah, it might be worth thinking about in terms of some of the things you can plan for way in advance, and some things that you might want to be able to do on the fly. Think about what kind of comments you get on your student evaluations at the end of the semester. I think, a lot of us have gotten that comment of, well, he changed up topics and the course schedule, and that threw me off. And that's because it's, they are working, and so you change a due date, and that really can interfere. Or if you change
the structure is like, oh.
Yes, if you're messing with the structure, that really. But if it's other things, they may not be as wigged out about. So and particularly, typically, if you're pushing a due date later, that's usually not a problem. But if you've got built-in time that you can accommodate that grading being shifted, right, that's also important.
Well, and I think that one of the things that, because we're talking about the students here, and of course students are eminently important, but also this functions in our own lives, right? So I've had to really train myself to also think about how this fits into my narrative, like to my annual evaluation, like, what is it that what is this story that I'm telling this year, and how am I presenting that? Because not only, we're teaching typically faculty are teaching 3, sometimes 4 sections, depending on your rank, and thinking, administrative loads, I'm teaching this, but I'm also directing the writing program, and it's like, how am I balancing all this? Like, so how am I telling the story of what happened this semester in my annual evaluation, but also building in that improvement narrative for my next semester, so it functions in that way for us as well.
This is that faculty-centered syllabus that or course that we were talking about at the beginning, or pre fall. And I think, it's worth thinking about. At the end of the spring term, you're going to have to start putting together your annual portfolio, and so you may want to think about, well, what didn't work in the fall term, and particularly if you've got the same course in spring and fall, that's wonderful in the sense that you can pivot off of the fall to say, okay, this didn't work in the fall, so I'm going to do this intervention in the spring to try and change things, and then you'll have something to write about in your portfolio at the end of the year, good or bad. It may be that you say, you know what, this is a problem I had in fall. This is the intervention I tried in the spring, and that didn't work. But here's my plan for next fall.
Right.
And I think, in the grand scheme of things, some of the most powerful teaching portfolios and narratives that I've seen they're having that reflective aspect.
Well, it's a continuous story, right?
Right.
I mean, this is, I mean, and the reason I started out with my reflection at the beginning is because this is one of my teaching narratives, right? Like you know, I'm always improving on that particular line, you know, trying different things because of the way that my job works. I have to be attentive to that in a way that I mean, honestly, if I'm going to highlight anything that's, you know, kind of, I would say, you know, doesn't really need a lot of improvement. You know, I'm really good at content creation. I'm really good at kind of like building those writing courses. I really need, year after year, I'm always working on my structure because I have to build course structures that are, you know, that adapt to my work and circumstance, that adapt to different, because I teach students at different levels, right? So I'm not, I mean, it's not like I'm only teaching grad, right? So I'm teaching first year, I'm teaching majors, I'm teaching non-majors, I'm teaching grads. So I'm continuously having to restructure for a person who already struggles with structure, you know? So I mean, this is my continuous improvement narrative that I've been kind of working on for years. And so I'm always having to do that. And that's my, you know, that's part of the narrative that I want to present, because it's like, I know that that's the thing I'm never going to be perfect at that. Right. But there are people that like David McKinnon. He's good. I mean, it's like, you look at him and you're like, you know, it's like, he's just, you know, I look at his, I'm like, I wish, you know.
Well, and I think that, so now's the time to start thinking about which of your colleagues have already figured out the solution to the things you're struggling with, and vice versa. What can you do to help them? I think the other thing is to think beyond just the annual evaluation. Most of us are looking at that promotion that's coming down the track, and it may be next year or it may be 3 years from now. And so what kind of evidence are we going to want? So now's the time to start thinking about, well, what am I teaching in the spring term? Which of those courses would be good for peer observation? Maybe I want a formative peer observation that it's just going to be for me so that I can improve before my formal observation. Or maybe it's, hey, I want to get that formal observation before I go up for that third year review, or I do want to go up for promotion to associate instructor. You know, now's the time to plan it. Say, okay, which 3 courses am I teaching, or 4 courses am I teaching? Which of these is my best course, right? Where I'm going to shine the most. And of that, in that course, when is that period when I'm going to be lecturing on or covering a topic that I really know backwards and forwards? Well, let me see if I can get locked down now a peer observation in that time frame, right? And then plan the rest. You know, that's maybe not a week you want a heavy grading load in your other classes, right? Because you know you're going to be polishing up that class period for that time. But plan now, because we always get to the end of the year or get towards a rite of passage and go, wow, I wish I'd collected more data.
Right.
Same thing with like pre and post observation, or pre and post class assessment, right? Now's a good time to think about an assessment that you can collect data at the beginning of the semester that's going to show that students don't know much about the topic. That's okay. And then take that same one. In my Anthropology of Death class, I ask basically 3 questions that are based on the 3 outcomes for the class. And I tell them, look, I know you're going to do poorly on this at the beginning of the semester. That's okay. And they do poorly on it. I mean, generally speaking, but then by the end of the semester, they do great on it. And that's because they've had the classroom intervention. So it's good to think about those sorts of things now. And they don't have to be high energy or high workload.
Exactly. Is this helpful in thinking about things? I mean, as we're kind of moving through this. So anybody else, I mean, thinking about your own, like looking at a checklist, or the things that you would think that are important for us to think about as a group?
I'm surprised this is a shy group.
I know, right?
You know, I have a question. I'm letting some others
Go for it. Go for it.
and ask theirs. And you may have covered this in 1, 2, and 3. I wasn't able to attend. So the topsy-turvy of put a little bit of stuff in your syllabus or put a lot of stuff in your syllabus, right? So, and like we do the general university policies and procedures, and then we have some of the school of nursing policies and procedures and a few things particular, to the course. And we have a undergraduate nursing student handbook, right, where there are some other stuff housed. And so I'm back to when I first got here. There were a lot of people, oh, don't put a whole lot of stuff in your syllabus but then as I've come and we see some things that students challenge or say they didn't know or like in nursing, it was like every time they came with us a different form, we go, okay, what did we not do now? So they bring up a different form. So I'm like, well, let me put it in front of them in the syllabus. It might be in the handbook, but obviously they're not looking in the handbook, right? But I know it's in the handbook, but then if I have to do a positive action or corrective action, it's in your handbook, and it is also in the syllabus, right? So I put, the necessary, the skeleton stuff of what we're supposed to put, and some few other things I do put in the syllabus. And I do the syllabus quiz, right? To unlock all the other modules to draw their attention to. So it's in the handbook, it's in the syllabus, and you had the syllabus quiz in order to get to the other information in the course. So what's your thought on put more, put less? What's your thought on that?
So we're probably on the same wavelength here. You go ahead.
I'm minimalist.
I should say my syllabi are now 12 plus pages, and which is yeah, I saw Julie's reaction, and that's crazy. We don't probably have as many policies and regs as you do in nursing, right? We're not an accredited program, so, but I think what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try to offload as much of that stuff onto, in my case, Canvas. I'm going to put all my policies in Canvas, and
there's also an opportunity here where you might want to talk to the nursing program. So one of the things that we did in the writing program is we have a website for common course policies and procedures, right? That is put on the syllabus as a link. Right. And so faculty can bring it up in class, they can kind of, if they want to, kind of highlight certain things, but it's like it's in the syllabus, but as a link.
I would load all of that stuff into your student handbook, and then have that student handbook be online somewhere where and you just link out to it. And it's all the policies in the student handbook apply here in this class, and you just have that statement in your syllabus. And then I think our minimalist approach is leave for the syllabus the course content material, the stuff that's going to be of interest to the student and the stuff that's of interest to you. Now, your quiz, what I would do is just have it be a student handbook, a nursing student handbook quiz. You have to pass that quiz and they have to, the handbook is their first reading assignment, right? But that way the syllabus goes back to what it used to be 15, 20, 30 years ago.
Instead of a compliance document.
Yeah, we're not lawyers. We don't have a law school here at UNF. And what we want is a document that engages students, gets them excited about the material, because if they're excited about the material in the class, then they're going to be more attentive, they're going to do well. If they're performing well and they're more engaged, you have a better experience as a faculty.
Well, it's kind of, so I approach it this way. This is the way I think about it. This is the analogy I think about, is I don't want to go over plagiarism with students the first day, right? I want them to be aware of academic integrity. I don't want to presume that they're going to plagiarize, right? So it's like, so in the syllabus, what I'm trying to do is frame the course as a partnership between, them and me, right? It's like, so this is, how does this function for you as a student? How does it function for me as a faculty member? But then have the appendices, right? Like all the stuff, like, links to all these things that in the case that if there is an appeal, right? This is part of this culture. You're expected to know this, but it's not like in the face the first day. And I've had to change that. So that's not how I used to be. We used to have our writing program syllabus used to be like almost 20 pages. It had a lot of information in it. And then eventually we just like, let's scale this back. Let's try to, a lot of this is common, right? Is it common across the department, across the program? We can kind of move this out and really make it much more of a functional document instead of a compliance document. I think that's my fear of syllabi, current, like contemporary syllabi. They have to carry the weight of liability, right? And it's like, well, no, that's not what the class is not about liability, right? I mean, it's like so how do we mitigate that, you know, on our end?
And if you excise that from your syllabus, or I shouldn't say excise, but if that becomes part of an appendix somewhere, all those policies, then that gives you more room to focus on some things that maybe aren't course content related directly, but they're things that you want to emphasize in your course. Maybe it's something about assessment, or maybe it's a community engagement component, or a research component, or maybe it's your diversity, equity, and inclusion statement, right? Maybe that's something you want to focus on, and that's very important. Those things can get lost in those compliance documents that we produce as syllabi. So
well, and I think especially at stage, I mean, to emphasize that, to pick up on your last point, like then DEI becomes kind of compliance, right? And it's not, it's like, well, and this is the same thing. This is why I use plagiarism, because for me, academic integrity is a cultural issue. Plagiarism is a compliance issue, right? That's kind of how I read it. It's like, you know, I want you to build a culture of academic integrity, understanding things such as citation and genealogy of sources, because you're part of a conversation that depends on that. And you need to be able to check your sources, and you need to be able to work within a system where your sources can be checked. This is not about presuming that you're going to plagiarize. You know, that for me, that's the difference in the cultural versus the compliance, right? This is culture building. This is not compliance, you know.
Yeah, it's almost like the compliance document excludes students, whereas a more student and faculty centered syllabus is welcoming to the community. Become part of the academic community that engages in this sort of
well, and I think that I mean not to go off on a tangent here, but I think that's just part of kind of a particular type of political creep into the classroom. Like the syllabus, to my mind, kind of is a performance of that. It's like all of a sudden there are all these different things. Like, no, those are important. Those are important contexts. So I'm not saying that they're not important, but they are contexts, right? And they need to be kind of placed with, you know, in that place of context. It's like, yes, we are working within a community that has, you know, has rules and procedures and conventions, and you need to know them because you're part of this community, student. Right. But at the same time, we're also within the culture of the classroom. And here are the things I really want to highlight. Right. These are the issues that really need to be, you know, part of our conversation. So something like DEI then becomes much more of this is a value, right? This is a purpose, rather than, oh yeah, let's make sure that we have this, you know, this offhand statement. And we all know how, you know, many of us feel the same way about statements. It's like they're good, but they can't stand in the place of action. And oftentimes that's what happens.
I think just after listening to that, I think I'm going to add probably like on the first page of the syllabus, a little paragraph a little forward that, you know, yes, this syllabus may contain a few compliance issues, but the purpose of the syllabus is to explain how we will generate a culture of success and facilitate your growth as professional nurses. Like just kind of help add some language to that very first page. I like when you say we're trying to build, what's the culture we're trying to build here. So
and if you think about that first page of your syllabus is kind of like the above the fold portion of a newspaper on the front page, right?
The lead.
It's the lead, right? It's what the reader's gonna get the most attention, because after the second page, it's, you know, they're starting, their attention span is waning.
Well, it's interesting actually. I say this because one of the big projects in plagiarism studies is the citation project by Becky Howard and Sandra Jameson up at Dartmouth. Becky's at Syracuse. And one of the things they found from the citation project is students often will only read the first page of an article, right? And they did that by coding citations, you know, across multiple institutions. And I say that to reinforce, it's like the first page the first page, you know, back and front are really the attention grabbers, right? Everything after that is more for the purposes of information hunting, right? So now we have to do our part in kind of moving students away from that, of course, as you know, as teachers and all that. But that's, you know, and of course that's just a product of a lot of different things, time management. That's how they're taught to read to a certain degree for the kind of main idea, and main idea is often in the beginning, right? So there's a whole kind of layer of reasons why they might do that. So sorry, just had to be a nerd there.
Other comments or questions? This is a great conversation.
Yeah, I hope that
Hope it's helpful.
yeah, I hope it's helpful. But so I think you've gone. So I have a question, and that is, you know, from your perspective, looking at the checklist. So for right now, I'm thinking, and I'm looking at Stephanie. I think that we should include things like, have you contacted community and campus partners?
Right.
Right. So things like the library. I mean, I'm thinking, of course, the library visit. You know, have you done that? Have you kind of done that legwork to do the schedules? I think that we should probably add that.
And I think, you know, something that's in here is, you know, thinking about all of the services that are there for students, both academic and support services that are there. And that's an area that I would struggle with, you know, the offloading the policy. I have no problem with that. That's policy. I'm not a lawyer. I want to get that out. Plus, it harkens to sort of negative interactions with students. It needs to be somewhere that it can be referenced if necessary. But and then there's the course content that needs to be highlighted. But then there's this whole section of student support services that I need them to know about and encourage them to access. If they're struggling with their writing, I want them to go to the Writing Center without me prompting, right? Or if they need help with research, I want them to go to the library, you know, and know that the library is there to help them. And I don't know how to get necessarily that information. That can be part of the syllabus, but maybe that's something that I need to plan on taking 5 minutes at the beginning of one class period each week. You know, it's like, okay, Monday mornings, the first thing we're going to do on Monday morning is we're going to talk about another support service here on campus. Okay, so this week it's the library. Next week it's the counseling center.
Well, and also you can thematize it, right? I mean, so for example, I mean, thinking about like, you know, talking about the Writing Center, when they're close to the writing, you know, when you're about to hand out the writing assignment, right? So a lot of times they end up using the Writing Center as a fix-it rather than as a partner kind of in the process. I mean, I'm just talking about that from the Writing Center's perspective, but you know.
And I've done that where I've embedded the Writing Center in one of their assignments, that if my students, when they're working on their outlines, if they will go to the Writing Center, they'll and provide evidence of it, they'll get extra points on their assignment, right? And so I encourage them to go and seek that proactive support and help. And yes, I'm giving them a couple of points on it. It really doesn't make a difference if they blow off the assignment. They're still going to bomb the assignment. But what happens is they end up producing better outlines or better drafts, which makes it helps their learning process, but it also helps my grading process. It's much easier to grade a better written draft than a crappy draft, right? We all know that.
Yep, because there's like, you know, not as much space for, you know. Stephanie?
Yeah, Catherine Hooper in psychology, she was part of that program. Linda, I think you did it.
The Summer Bee Enrichment, yeah.
The Summer Bee Enrichment program. And she talked about it. It's something I went to, she talked about it. She created these little mini extra credit things that had students going to places that were good for them. That's the wrong way. But like she gave them, if they took a picture studying in the library, that was one of the things she had. She had them go to the SAS's a SAS workshop. She had them visit the tutors. So she had this whole little series of things. And I was in my head like, that's a lot of extra credit points. And it was kind of like Gordon just said, it was not enough extra credit to give anybody anything, but students don't always do the math on that.
Yeah.
But she had students who started using the library as a place to study because they realized it really works for them. And there is something to the magic. If you visit the library 20 times in a semester, it improves your grades. You know, there's some random stats out there about that kind of stuff. And I just thought that was an interesting way to get students to try those things. I know there are a couple people, and I don't love this idea necessarily, but I know that it gets people to the library where there's some, there are a couple classes, I can't even think what they are, where they have a writing assignment and they get that extra credit for making an appointment with a librarian. Sometimes that's effective and sometimes it's not.
Yeah, we found that in the writing center too. It's like if it's required,
and so they don't really take advantage of the consult. But if they take advantage of the consult as a, like they come into it with, I'm going to get something out of this and you're going to sign my piece of paper, it can be the start of a really great thing for those kind of students.
Well, and this is what we run into, and this is why I brought that up, because I was thinking about the library, I was also thinking about the writing center and SAS. It's like the more, you know, so for one of the things that we'd like to do is the faculty want to like require the writing center like as part of the process. We love to meet with them and kind of think about what their assignments are, right? Where the best intervention is. So it might be that it's better if students come towards the beginning of the process to kind of brainstorm the organization rather than at the end just to do proofreading, right? And so that there's kind of, and that allows students to think about how to interact with that space, because a lot of times they'll come in and say, I was sent here by my faculty member. And it's like, okay, to do what? And they're like, I need you to sign this. And it's like, no, I don't think your faculty just wants us to sign this.
We get a lot of that.
So, I mean, the more that it can be a partnership, right? It's like thinking about, well, yeah, I want them to go to the library, but maybe I also want the librarian to do like a session with them. And then all of a sudden becomes more, I'm very much a big believer that not most of us, all of us in higher education, we teach process. Right, and product is a part of that process. So we're teaching them. Yes, we teach them content, but a lot of what we're doing is teaching them decision-making process. Right? It's like, why are you making this decision? I mean, that's how I talk to my students about writing. It's like, why do this instead of that? Right? So why did you choose that option instead of this option? And so the more that they can understand that this is a process, then the more I think it's successful for them. So, Deirdre.
Yeah, you want them to learn something along the journey, not just, you know, like the Amazing Race, get the flag at the end. You want them to learn something along the journey. When I used to have a paper assignment, and I would have certain students needed to go to the writing center, I would always say, now you can't go with a blank slate. You have to have something written, because they're not going to sit there and write your paper for you. You've got to have something written, and don't think that they're going to sit and, you know, do like an hour-and-a-half session with you. You know, have something written and have prepared so that if you only had 20 minutes or 30 minutes, what can you pull out from that? But I wanted to say about the resources, putting the resources in front of the student again. So we do have some of that in that, you know, general policy procedure, some of that language in the syllabus, but on my Canvas site, I have a module and it's labeled student resources. I purposely put it towards the top, and I have probably, because we do almost a different disease process and body system every week, I've got like, I don't know, like 18 modules, right? But I put it purposely up at the top. So when they click on that module page, student resources, they're always going to see that one before they scroll down to get to the other modules, right? And I have assignments out of some of our Elsevier book. And so we have Elsevier student resources. So instead of making a separate model that said Elsevier student resources, I also house, so under student modules, if they click on it, then I have the page that says UNF and School of Nursing resources, and then Elsevier. So when they click on it to get the assignment, they have to click on student resources, and their eyes are going to see the UNF and student before they get to the, so that's my way of kind of keeping it there for them to realize those resources are there, if they can just keep it in front of them. Yeah.
No, I think that's really important. Yeah, it's a great idea.
And getting things in front of their eyes, that's often key. I think if I had a recommendation as we head towards the Thanksgiving holiday, grab a calendar for the spring. And yeah, and what's interesting is CERT always has on their website the calendar for the semester, whether it's on Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. They've got those schedules as downloadable Excel spreadsheets. I know that undergraduate studies, they have calendars for students to pick up. I picked up one this year for my own purposes, and they've got the whole semester mapped out. And the nice thing about it is if you have a couple of those, you could start filling them out now, right? And I would, to go back to your earlier point is, I think about like, what are your other responsibilities? Are you on a search committee and those interviews are going to be in January and February? Okay, we'll sort of like block those times out on the calendar because you don't want some grading. When academic activity tracking is going to need to take place, when midterm satisfaction and unsatisfactory assessments need to be done, when our final grades due. Block out those times and then start thinking about your 4 or 3 classes and when do you want to have the assignments due? When do you want to, when's your anniversary or your partner's birthday or whatever, those personal events. Your mid-tenure review, personal and professional events that are going to affect you. So you can see at least what, it may be a daunting thing to look at, but if you start having those thoughts and those conversations with yourself now, then as you roll towards the winter break, you'll be cogitating about these things as you walk back to your car or as you're shopping or whatever, so that your brain will have had time to wrap around and think about these things.
Yeah. I also think now it's just kind of a good time to journal in terms of like these reflections, kind of thinking about, opening that document for your annual evaluation and just kind of taking notes. They don't have to be full sentences, but just kind of putting a pin in certain things you're thinking about now that might help. I mean, that's what I'm doing in terms of,
what did you tell your chair you were going to do last summer? And did you do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And then what are the stuff that you did that you didn't tell your chair you were going to do and you're doing?
That's right.
I may have a question also, maybe a comment.
Yes.
I think syllabus is supposed to be a very simple document, right? I mean, you just express to the reader, the audience, what's your intention as an instructor, right? How to build up a successful, learning in this course. But I also kind of struggle sometimes about how simple it can be or it should be. That the end of the semester is around the corner. We are all going to facing some excuses. Am I right? Students will come to you at almost the last minutes.
Yeah.
And I cannot do this. I'm late for this or whatever. We are going to deal with that. So my question is, I'm struggling. Like Gordon said, how much? We are not all lawyers, right? You cannot deal with every cases at this moment, but students will come up with all different kind of excuses. So are you suggesting we should put up some kind of like a bullet? If you do this, late for this, what you're going to do, for example, how many credit will be off? For these cases, it's a late work, no any documentary, I'm not going to accept any credit. We have to make that decision as a faculty. I'm thinking it's like almost the last week, last 2 weeks, we start facing a lot of this kind of pressures. Besides our normal teaching load or normal grading load, we spend a lot of time on this. So my question or comment is, how much you guys feel, all of us, you should put up this kind of policy as clear, precise as possible?
Yeah, I think that, I understand your frustration, right? I mean, we face it in writing, right? So and I think that's one of the things to think about, not only as faculty, but as, certain programs and departments, thinking about within the syllabus, being clear, especially on things that are going to come up, right? And having that conversation and including that perhaps in kind of common language. Right. And putting on, I don't think there's a problem with putting that on the syllabus, because again, I think of it as a cultural document. So students have to be aware of the good, and they also have to be aware, we know this is what tends to happen, and here are the boundaries, right? It's like, so I'm pretty lenient on my late policy. I've become very lenient. But I can, right? I mean, it's like I have a space here, and also because I'm really focused on process, right? So I can use that as an opportunity to talk about like different, different adaptations to process. But the fact is I tell them, I'm not going to, I'm not going to read your first assignment the last week of class, right? I'm not going to do that. I don't have the time, I don't have the energy, and really that's not what it's for. So coming up with those kind of, I think, I hate to say general particulars, but parameters, where it's like, we know that this is what happens, right? This is a pattern, and this is how we deal with that pattern. And it's like, if you find yourself in this situation, this is what you can expect.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything wrong with putting that in the syllabus, because again, that honors kind of the fact that I think we all share certain things, but I do think that there are things that are particular to certain areas, right? I think procrastination in writing is like, I procrastinate as a writer,
Me too.
So I have to build against that in ways that, maybe procrastination isn't as bad, maybe in something like math or the sciences, but there really is a sense of bad multitasking, right? Trying to do too many things at once, right? So I mean, that's,
I think, Debbie, the concern you have is precisely why my syllabi have grown to be 12 and 20 pages long, because I try and accommodate or think about every possible contingency. Well, what if it's 2.5 days late? How many points are we going to take off? And so, and I think that, sketching out those kind of parameters can be very useful and helpful, and important, and it may be important for different kinds of faculty with different kinds of positionality. The assistant professor, maybe a young professor, someone female and faculty of color, they may need that backup of a more legalistic syllabi document, because they may find that students question their authority more. And so I would never want to say you can't use your syllabi to do that. That would be a very intentional and thoughtful way of using your syllabi. But I think it was Suzanne Ehrlich who talked about last year. She had a late policy that was a little bit more practical and I think more realistic. And this is one that I've tended towards myself is, look, if you come to me before the assignment's due and you explain to me, and I don't need the details, but you tell me it's going to be late, I can't get it done on time. Here's when I'll get it to you, right? And here's what here's how I'm going to deal with my responsibility as a student. Then I can probably accommodate it, right? Again, I'm not going to look at your first assignment the last week of the semester. No, that ain't going to happen. But on the other hand, I think there's a certain place for elasticity and empathy, and I think that's particularly during COVID, particularly for our students who are working as much and are caregiving and these sorts of things, and returning students. That sort of flexibility and empathy is what the administration is talking about when they ask faculty to be flexible. They're not talking about academic rigor and standards. They're talking about if you feel it's academically appropriate to give that student a little space to because that's and what I tell students is when you get out into the quote real world and you're working for a boss, you're going to have times when you're not going to be able to get that report to them on Friday. But if you tell them, look, I will get it to you on Monday morning, most bosses are going to be like, okay, I can live with that, right? Or at least it's better that you tell your boss up front that you're not going to get than just not hand in the report, right? Yeah. So it's also some of that practical aspect of learning to be responsible for themselves. Yeah. But that's a great question.
But I agree with you. It's like, I definitely understand, what you're saying about assistant professors who just come in, and the colored people, we learn that the colored and the female tend to get a lower ISQ data. We know that. But the other thing is like, as experienced, I'm not new. I don't say that, I can deal with students. This is no, that's for sure, But one of the questions I have to deal with, it's like sometimes feel uncomfortable to deal with, is like a student come to you, like I have this excuse, all the other professors give me a makeup exam, but you said no. That's one of the things that we as a faculty have to deal with. So you cannot say that assistant professor did something wrong. You cannot say that, right? The other piece of being kind, I'm not kind. You cannot say that. So this is something. So I really like what Linda pointed out. One thing is about the department or the program should have some kind of common sense policy over there. So it's not the faculty's responsibility to deal with whether or not I should accept or not accept. That's really I want to seek, from the faculty enhancement, because all of these things, it's not supposed to be, as a faculty, all of us, it's not supposed to be for us to judge. Am I right? It's like you're late. In general, we're not going to pick a student saying, you're not late, then I give you a lower grade. Usually it's you're late. Should I accept or not? Should I give you a makeup exam or not? That's the question. I think it's supposed not to be the faculty's responsibility to deal with that. It's supposed to be a department's policy. Otherwise, the faculty have to deal with this issue. I'm being kind or not to you.
Right.
Yeah, because it feels like a subjective experience for students, right? It's like,
if you're in a program or a department that can have that conversation and set those policies, and maybe set a policy for lower division and upper division courses or courses in the major,
I really like the fact that and I think that some programs do, we talked about the nursing handbook. So I think an opportunity to have that kind of conversation in terms of we did it for the writing program for the lower division classes, just because we have certain things like Gordon writing, you can't get a D. And so the state requirement is if you get a D, that doesn't count for Gordon writing, right? So there are certain things that we have to kind of programmatically tend to. And so we took that as an opportunity to talk. Now, part of it is elasticity, right? So the faculty have some elasticity because you want to be careful of academic freedom, right? But there is a sense of, so for example, one of the things that we have in our common course policy is that if students miss 20% or more of a class, right, an in-person class, then they have to get a D or lower for the course, right? But beyond that, faculty can kind of create whatever kind of policy that's good for within their classroom, but we have kind of a department standard, right? So that way it becomes, both at once elastic, but also there are some hard lines where it's like, no, this is just, the state says a D doesn't get credit. So, we have to figure out what that looks like.
And that, Debbie, I know we're running time, but we did that in nursing. We have a policy about late submissions. If it's 24 hours, is this much gets deducted. If it's 48, this much. If it's greater than a week. But we also include on there some terminology about at the discretion of the faculty. So that if you have those people who are proactive and reach out to you, and so you make arrangements with the student, this is the arrangement, then the faculty can use their discretion. But then if the student doesn't come to you, you can say, well, this is what it said, we didn't make arrangements. And
that's precisely what I tell my students is I say I have more power and control to help you prior to the due date than after the due date, right? And
thank you all for your what you're saying. It's really kind of helps, and I really agree with you that there's supposed to be a hard line. Especially you can think about I think the tenure track faculty, generally speaking, they all hold this hard line pretty well. I can say that, but I noticed that I think it's out of our control about there are so many adjuncts, so many visiting professors. They're temporary job. I can understand that their perspective, like Gordon said, they need the ISQ to be as high as possible. To be honest with you, more than us in a certain way. And then because they are hired based on, on the teaching perspective, right? So the students' feedback, student complaint is much more effective than those to us. So in these circumstances, I don't blame them if they, change the hard line. So they give students, no matter what, however you're late, they may give you a makeup opportunity. But that part, I think it's related to academic integrity. For example, is the student really reach that goal for this by taking this class? That's the part I'm worried. So I really think about it's a university-wide kind of policy that should be implemented to all the courses. Doesn't matter who is teaching it. The department maybe come up with a deadline, but like you all know, it's based on the instructor's discretion, right? Whether or not I give you this makeup exam. So if there are no one different group of people are teaching it, that means there are a lot of room they can move it. So I'm thinking, is there any way like a faculty, and we worry about student learning, student success, should we really put something there, like a hard line? I don't know, it's a capstone course. Otherwise, I'm worried about how much do you believe students really learn or reach that goal after taking a class with a faculty who do not really put the hard line in front or hold it.
Well, and I think that some departments, and I know in building one, there are conversations about consistency across course sections, right? If you've got 8 sections of peoples and cultures of the world in my program, there should be some consistency there, and I think that's helpful for the faculty, because then you don't have students, shopping around for the easiest section, right?
Yeah. But, I think that and I think there's an opportunity, again, and I think it's an opportunity to have a continuing conversation, especially at the program and department level, right? Because I think that that's really an important conversation. It's like, what do we all accept, right? And what do we all find unacceptable, right? What are things that we just like, this is just not going to work? And how do we implement that so that it becomes more of a multivocal? And also that, to a certain degree, by taking that responsibility on, departments can help those vulnerable faculty, right? So it's like they can give that. It's like, no, it's not me. This is our program, and I think the more that we can help that, the more it actually, ironically, even though students don't experience this way, it would help student learning, right?
Definitely, I absolutely agree with you. But to follow what you suggested, it's better, like I said, for the tenure track or what's called in-unit faculty, because we are usually have a meeting together, right? But the part it's out of control is the adjunct and visiting professor. They're not considered in-unit faculty. Am I right? So they do not have to attend the department meetings when we talk about the curriculum, even the improvement for a curriculum. They just do whatever the chair asks them to do. And then I don't think there's a monitoring system about how they are teaching a particular course. Am I right? Or is there a particular? I don't need a monitor, but you know what I mean? It's a control the quality, something.
I think it varies, I think it varies by program and all that. And I also think it varies by size of program.
And accreditation.
And all that. So, I think there are a bunch of different variables. But I do think that that's an important conversation to have. And I think it's, but I also think, we don't pay our adjuncts very much. So there's all the, like I said, all these contributing variables, and so how do we do that? How do we value what we do? How do we value the work that our adjuncts bring, but also at the same time support them in delivering the message and delivering the curriculum that we need them to deliver? Because oftentimes it's scaffolded, right? So that stuff needs to be done early on in order for those other courses to kind of, be successful, because it can be a domino. It's like, if that doesn't work, then there's a whole domino effect. And we see that again. We say it often, like in the hard sciences and, especially those math-based disciplines, where it's like, if you don't get those fundamental skills here, it's like, if you don't know how to do college algebra, you're not going to,
do calculus.
You're not going to be able to do calculus, right? You need to know that stuff. It's a little different in writing, right? So writing is, to my mind, Sam Kimball always used to say, what you need to know in the first writing class, you need to know in the last writing class, because we're much more of a practice-based discipline. It's like we're doing the same. It's more like coaching. It's like you keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. So you need to know verbs and nouns and all that at the beginning as well as the end, right? But there are some disciplines where it's like you need those fundamental skills. And if you don't, if you don't understand that, then you're not going to get that. And and those are all those are stacked in a way that some skills aren't stacked. So. Well, y'all, this has been great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it was a great conversation. And what we're going to do is we're going to do some other we're going to do similar sessions in the spring. Maybe focus on, we really like to do one focus on first year students, like in faculty and first year students, thinking and maybe bringing up some parts of this conversation that we had, Debbie, in terms of thinking about those different needs for those different populations. So that's one thing we're talking about. We're talking about several different sessions in the spring. So I hope everybody can join us for that. And thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much.
Oh,
Stay warm.
Thank you. Thank you all.
okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Deb. Bye.